Gosh, I haven't bought eggs in weeks. Well, hello, Shiny Crafty People. It's Tim Totten here, and welcome back to the channel. It is a couple weeks before Easter in 2025, and as many of you may know, the price of eggs has been a little bit crazy. Avian bird flu and some other factors are really making it very expensive, and that means that the traditional Easter plan of dyeing eggs and hiding them might be a little out of reach for some people this year. I want to offer you an alternative, and that is fabric eggs that you make yourself, or ones that kids can actually decorate still. But the secret is on the back. It actually has an opening and you can hide treats inside here. So you can put some candy in there and then hide these out in the yard, and kids can go out and search for their Easter eggs just like they normally do. And the difference is you've made it out of very small scraps of fabric and you're using a pattern, real simple pattern. And I did 3 of these and decorated in like less than 25 minutes. In fact, that's what it took me to cut out the pattern and then cut all the fabric. So you could actually do a lot of these in short time. I also suggest that if your kids are maybe a little bit older, some of the kids you're dealing with, maybe actually have them help you to put these together. They can sew them together, they can cut out the pattern, maybe they can even cut the fabric if they're old enough. It's a great time to start kids learning to sew because it's a really, really simple project. So why don't you join me down at the cutting table and I'll show you what it takes to make these fabric Easter eggs that you can still stuff with toys, and instead of buying those plastic eggs that kids really can't decorate, you can actually make eggs that they can decorate. All right, join me down at the cutting table. All right, so for this I'm gonna need a couple things. I'm gonna need some fabric, and I'm gonna need, for the version I'm gonna do, some white fabric and some Sharpie markers that kids can decorate with. This is just to show you different colors, and I'll do a little sample later, but you don't need these right now to make the actual item. And then of course we need our pattern. So this pattern actually came from the seamwhisperer.com, seamwhisperer.com. And you can see here, there's a seamwhisperer.com/fabric-easter-eggs. I will put a link in the description below. Now, the Seam Whisperer has 3 different sizes, and they get pretty big, actually. So you'll see they go from here to this size. I'm going to use the smallest size because I'm going to use this 3/8 seam allowance they have and only use a 1/4 inch. I don't think I want to do any huge Easter eggs. I'd rather do a bunch of small ones, and that would allow the kids to have a lot to decorate. Now, I'm going to use a pair of scissors that I can cut paper with, but I also have my scissors for fabric. I've already measured. I know that this is 3.5 inches across. So in fact, I've already cut out some strips of fabric, 3.5 inches. So let me cut out all 3 of these pieces real quick, and then we'll go from here. Now, you certainly could draft your own shapes if you wanted to. I just was happy to use somebody who's already figured it out, but you can draw your own egg shapes. And you'll notice that because we're making a little pocket at the back, like I've already showed you at the beginning of this video, you need 2 overlapping ones. So once I cut all these out, let me just be quiet and I'll do that in fast forward. One of the things that you could do is make sure you check this 1-inch test square on their pattern. That shows you that you've printed the pattern the right size. But really, it doesn't matter as long as you have the same templates. Now, interestingly, what we're going to do with these is once we cut our pieces, they will then go like this. And you see they overlap each other, these two. But they say here to place on fold. So the confusing thing about their pattern is they still have a seam allowance, which you don't need because this is going to be placed on the fold of the fabric. So I'm just going to cut those off. I'm going to literally just cut to the fold. And that'll let them overlap still. Now, if you wanted, you could leave this one, and I might just leave this one on and actually place this on the fold, just because I still want a little extra overlapping. So,
Future Tim here. Go ahead and cut off that other tab. It's going to work better for the final project.
What we're going to do next is go to our fabric and cut these out. Now, you could pin them on your fabric if you wanted to. And then cut, it's really up to you. So what I'm going to do is I've cut this 3.5, so it's the size of the width of that. And I do have some folds already down here. So I'll go ahead and take advantage of one of these and just cut it there. So if I pin it in place, then I can cut around it. So I will pin that in place. So I'm making them out of colorful fabric right now, but I will also make a white one and show you how to cut that. And I'll just go ahead and cut this there. And then now I will take this and just, oh, I want my good fabric scissors. Those are the paper scissors. And I'm just not cutting the fabric, I'm cutting next to it. The other good part about this is you don't really have to be super exact because you're gonna sew this once it's all together. And you could use what they offered, which was a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I've got that piece cut out. I've cut one, folded one for each of my backs, different colors. And now I can do the same here, but remember, I don't have a fold any longer. So I will need to fold the fabric and get enough to where I can put it on the fold. Okay, that's good. Fold the other one, the other side back. So now those folds line up. Come in here and pin that. Same thing I just did a minute ago. And then I'll cut this one out too. Now this last one says just cut one, but what that means, if we just cut one, the inside will be this fabric up against it. And so you could decide to double it over and cut two pieces so you can put them back to back and have a finished piece if you want. But there's still gonna be seam allowances inside, so I'm just gonna cut one from this. Depends also how thick you're gonna stuff your egg. If you were going to, with goodies, by the way, not just with any kind of stuffing. If you were going to put batting in here, then I would go up to the bigger size egg and maybe just cut the actual on the shape and then put a seam allowance, or make this a bigger seam allowance. But for now, I think it's fine to just have the raw edge, because what's going to happen is you're going to fill it with some candy. And I don't want you to have too much for the kids to have to color. As much as kids might like coloring, they probably want to do more than one egg. So I think smaller eggs. And actually, it's more like the size of an actual egg. All right, so I'll go ahead and cut this out as well. All right, so that one's now been done as well. And we are ready to actually put these eggs together. So we're going to start with right sides together. So we'll lay out each of these, right sides facing up, and then place our piece on it. I'm just for my own sake, I'm going to put the top one down first, and then the bottom one. And I'm doing this because when I turn it inside, right side out, it'll be the opposite. The top one will be going over. And it'll allow me to go up in there and tuck in the candy into this area that's a little bit, maybe is more secure. I don't know. I'm kind of guessing. So I'll put a couple pins in. And you could play with this if you wanted to. I'm just going to put pins through all of the layers. And that goes through all of the layers. The one single layer in the back, and then the double layers at the top. So you're actually going to be sewing through 5 layers of fabric right here. Let me do the same thing on the other side. And again, I'm going to put the top one on first. Now, if you didn't like how this is going to look, because remember what's going to happen is this will be actually, you're actually going to be able to see the stitching on the inside when the kids go to get the candy. Most kids are not going to care that there's seam allowances on the inside, but if that was something you were concerned about, you could easily double this up, double the back fabric, leave a little opening, turn it inside out, and then edge stitch it, but I don't think that's gonna look as good. You could also use clips on this if you wanted to, but let's go to the sewing machine and we'll talk about how to sew all this together now that we've got two different ways of pinning it. So I would really suggest using some type of a guide on your machine if you have one on your machine. I happen to have one here. And like I said, I'm gonna use a 1/4 inch guide on mine. It's also the width of my presser foot. You could use the 3/8 inch guide that's on the pattern, would be perfectly fine. I just want them to be a slight bit bigger on as an egg. I don't want it to be too small. So I'm gonna come in here and then I'll start on this one. You can really start anywhere on the item. I'm not gonna start on the raw side here because I may not see if it catches everything. I'm gonna start on this side where I know I have to catch these pieces and parts. And I'm just gonna go real slow and give myself a little bit of a back stitch right there. And we don't have to worry about leaving an opening or anything. Pull my pins out far enough. I'm just spinning this around. If you think these are gonna get a lot of wear and tear from children, I mean, they are once a year, so I don't know why it would really be a problem. You could use a real low stitch length, but frankly, I just wanna make a bunch of them, so I'm gonna use a little bit longer stitch length. I'll take that pin out now. I'm using a 3, I think it's a 3mm stitch length on my machine. And these are gonna be a little, I might have a little bit of a gap or a pucker there. I don't really care. All right, so now, see how fast that was to do? Now what I'm gonna do is gonna go in and just clip the corners a little bit, give it a little ease to flip around. You don't have to do this. This is not a step that you have to do, but I'm just not clipping all the way to the fabric, to the threads. Just clipping a little, just so it turns along those curves. This is not a necessary step. Really isn't. In fact, I won't clip the other one and then we can see the difference in how good the eggs look. I'm just coming off the screen and you can't see it. I have to get to where I can look in the camera at the same time. All right, there we go. And now it's easy to turn around because we just literally turn it right side out by taking those, it's almost like a little pillow. And I turn that right side out. I'm just gonna run my finger along the inside. You could get a point turner or a chopstick or something in there. A really blunt, large scale knitting needle. And there you go. We've now made an egg that we can tuck our treats into. Let me go ahead and crank the other one up. I'll make a white one and then I'll show you decorating it. Like I said, I'm not going to clip this one around. I will just go ahead and turn it right side out. Use my fingers in there, and you can get it to the iron if you really are overly specific about how it looks. I don't think there's much reason to get too specific, especially if you're helping with your grandkids or your kids or somebody to make these. And then look, there's our little eggs. All right, let's do the white one. Now, I'm getting ready to sew these together, but I want to point out something. I'm using a material that is a nylon pack cloth. It's a impervious fabric so that color doesn't run through it. So I can color on it and it won't go through the other side. See there? But if you're using like a cotton fabric, it would go through to the other side. So let me give you an example. Like if I had this little scrap from the other fabric, if I colored on it, it's going to come through and you're going to see it on the other side. So if you're going to work with kids to make these, you may want them to decorate the unsewn item first, or you might want to create an insert that you put inside out of like maybe a side of a milk carton or something that you would tuck inside, so and put it all the way in, so that when they color it, it won't bleed through to the other fabric, and you're not going to see it on both sides. So that's an important thing to think about doing. But since I'm using this material, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to go ahead and put this one together. Again, this is a small project that's meant for kids to have a good time. So now I'm going to turn this right side out. So now in less than 20 minutes, I have made 3 eggs. And that was even the amount of time it took me to cut out the pattern and everything else. So you can imagine this could go faster if you wanted it to. I'm gonna go ahead and draw on this one, and then I will show you the final parts. All right, so there we go. I finished decorating an Easter egg. Obviously, I'm an adult playing around with this. So where are you? There you are. And you could have a lot more fun with the kids because they're going to come up with even crazier fun stuff to do. And then literally you just tuck your candy and pieces into here. And now they've got these cute little, and you can do it in different fabrics. In fact, I think if you wanted to be really over the top, you would use batiks so they look like those dyed Easter eggs. But in a year when it's probably a little crazy expensive to buy a whole bunch of eggs and dye them with the kids, you could actually make some with their favorite fabrics and have them be part of the process, or maybe create some out of white fabric that they can color themselves. And it would be a little more fun that they're actually doing it themselves. So you guys still get to do the typical Easter egg decorating part of it, and have a whole lot of fun. And you don't have to really go buy a bunch of those dye kits and everything else, or crazy expensive eggs for Easter. So I hope you enjoyed this fun Easter project. And until next time, folks, stay crafty. Bye for now. Maybe I should have made them bigger because, you know, I like a lot of candy. Well, I still have more of a template.